Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we have David Richter with Simple CFO Solutions. And you flew in from St. Cloud, Florida. Talk about why most investors aren't profitable and how to turn your business into a money printer. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm Steve Trang, sales trainer. And every month we help hundreds of people buy more houses at deeper margins. If you want more info about that, DM me the word sales on Instagram. And I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires. And the information on this podcast alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, I promise you will become one. And the show is brought to you by our company, InvestorLift. So get access to over 2 million cash buyers across the country. Go to InvestorLift.com and put in Disruptors to get 10% off. And if you get value today, please tag a friend below. Share this episode right now. That way we can all grow together. And the show is live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Arizona time. We are hiring. And please check us out on our new Discord. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. So first question is, what got you into real estate?
Well, I think it was like a lot of real estate investors. A good friend of mine in college gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I read that book, and it was just like a totally different way of thinking because up till then, my dad had just had normal jobs and, hadn't even thought about being an entrepreneur or buying real estate. And that book definitely unlocked a lot of that mindset for me.
Yeah, it's crazy how many people like that was the book. It was for me too.
Yep.
When was this?
Let's see, 2011? So
2011.
Yeah.
So this is college.
Yep.
So you read the book while in college.
Yep.
All right. And then I'm assuming you still finished your college
Finished
degree.
the degree. I got married during that time too. Also I bought a house like while I was in college too. Like my first one off the MLS. It was a HUD foreclosure. And I'm like, I'm not just gonna read, I'm gonna do this. So I bought that first house like almost immediately after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
So you're an action taker.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to jump right into it. And that deal was awesome. Like rented it out for a little bit, actually lived in there for a couple of years, then lease optioned the property, and the lease option tenant turned out to be super tenant, paid early, and then cashed me out 6 months later. So I'm like, I want to do this a lot more. So I got the bug.
Well, you kind of had the wrong expectations set upon you.
Yeah, it was pretty different expectations up front, but I got around good people too, good mentors that helped me along that path too. And I started working with a company, a real estate investing company, where I was like working nights and weekends for like 8 months for free, just like trying to learn, download, bring value to them. And then in return, I got to work with them, and we scaled that from 5 deals a month to 30 deals a month and got to see a whole small business. And so I got a lot of good people pouring into me too.
Sure. So 2011,
Yep.
you read the book. What were you studying at the time?
To be a teacher.
To be a teacher.
Secondary education.
Which you are now.
Yes,
we'll get to that.
Exactly.
All right. So you're studying to be a teacher. Read the book. When did you graduate?
Graduated 2013.
2013. So
Yep.
you still, even reading the book and even buying properties, you still went all the way through to finish the degree.
Yep, I finished the degree.
Okay. And then right after that,
Yep.
you jumped into
Working with the real estate investing company because I just was at that time I was doing a side job while I was in college, going to school during the day and then working at night. And that's where I got to read a lot too because I was a machinist. So I would just punch in the numbers and then sit down and read for 3-4 hours at a time.
pretty nice.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Sounds like management was a little suspect.
Well,
Wasn't really around.
Right. Well, it's the middle of the night. They didn't care. There's
Yeah.
cameras everywhere. It was just like, do it, make sure the machine doesn't go down. That was their
Yeah.
big thing.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really awesome. So that's where I dove into reading more books on real estate. That's what got me interested in seeking out a mentor because
Yeah.
I at first asked my dad, like, do you know anyone in real estate in this area? And he's like, yeah, I talked to these couple people. So kind of what got me started right after college going.
Well, now it's slightly
asking for
unusual
mentor.
because most people don't jump into mentorship or you hire a mentor or work for anybody.
Yep.
Like a lot of people kind of want to do this on their own.
Right.
And so whether they fail on their own or they go out there and or kill it, either way, like it's kind of like I'm gonna be a lone wolf at first. And sometimes there's some scarcity mindset as well. Like I don't want to share my secrets.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted you to go work for somebody first before going off on your own?
It might have been all the books that I was reading combined with, like I said, I've had good people in my life. The two best people that I could even say were the parents that raised me as well too. Like I owe a lot to them and their mentality of seek help if you need that. So it was like, for me, it was a natural progression of I'm reading all these books, I'm taking action on this first property, but I want to buy more deals and I also want to learn business too.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was like, what skill do I have? What can I bring to the table to trade off basically like for mentorship or for learning the business, or can I add to this company and have, help it scale and grow? So that was kind of the mentality that I was going through when at that time.
Well, it's very fortunate that you had the mindset to learn from somebody else. And it was pretty fortuitous who you ended up connecting with.
Yes.
You want to talk about who you ended up connecting with?
Yes. So Wayne Schaefer, Tom Olson, and Gary Harper. So if you know Gary Harper, he runs Sharper, and
Hmm.
he's helped, I believe, with your companies and whatnot. And so worked for 5 years there underneath those leaders, and got to see Gary when he first started and was building out his first systems and processes
Hmm.
for Sharper, and seeing his genius at work. And we did. It scaled the company from 5 deals a month when we first started, when I first started working there, to about 30 deals a month when I left, and doing 300 deals a year. It was, a lot of that leadership. So yes, I was very fortunate with who I linked up with
Yeah.
at that time.
And for those guys that didn't watch our episode with Gary Harper, definitely go check that episode out later on. We'll put a link in the YouTube. But he's my coach, right? I mean, he's come
Yep.
out here multiple times to help me with my business, help us scale and grow. So it's awesome and pretty fortunate you got to work with him.
Yes.
And you also got to work with another peer, Josh.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, Josh Culler. So he was another person at that company, and that's when he was, he's in the marketing department. He was doing all of that stuff there for the properties and whatnot. So getting to see him before he went off on his own too with Color Media and really exploding his business. So there was a lot of people that have come out of that one business there that now have their different enterprises.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see that kind of spout out. Just like we just finished watching, the playoffs, right? Like
Yep.
if you're a good team, like all the assistant coaches or whatever players, they go off and do other bigger things on their own, starting with the right leadership from the get go. So, what were you responsible for when you were working under Wayne's team?
So I was kind of a utility man. I could go in there, fix something, and then move on.
Hmm.
So I'd always be working myself out of jobs. So I did acquisitions, dispositions, project management, property management, transaction coordination, and the finance seat. So I got to see almost
All
every
the same
single.
time, or were you constantly moving
No,
roles?
I constantly moved roles. I'd be in a role for about 6 months to a year, set a process. Okay, who can we put inside of that seat?
Hmm.
So I was kind of, like I said, that utility man, and, managed 100 properties, put a property management in place, like that whole system. And, one of the last seats I sat in for the last year was the finance seat.
Got it. So, which makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does.
So there's something I learned. This is from a strategic coach,
Okay.
which was like, there's project managers and there's process managers,
Hmm.
and then the process managers are great because they can do that role forever.
Right.
Project manager can do something really well once, right? And they'll
Yep.
crush that role, and they can explain or whatever, and help other people do it, but they can't do it over and over again. Is
Right.
that kind of like your situation here?
Yeah, I would say so. That it was like, let's get it started, and then I would want to move on to something else, or
Right.
like what's broken in the company and go
Yeah.
in there and fix it.
Okay. So, uh, someone that's because you're very, you're finance oriented, right? Teacher.
Yep.
This is not the traditional closer.
Right. No.
So how was that situation?
I think when I first started doing that job, it was more difficult for me because I wasn't that person at that time. But it was a lot of training and
Hmm.
teaching and like going to masterminds. Like that was the first time they took me to a mastermind, and it opened my eyes. Like, okay, I need sales training, or I need, this follow-up system. Like just being exposed to all of that to be like, okay, this is, this is how we're going to build this department, or this is how we're going to build it out. And then being able to actually put the right people in place too. So it was a mind blowing experience for me. And then it was also a big experience for me to say, if this is the skill that I need, where do I go and get it? And how do I acquire that and just train myself? Because that was the thing too. Because now, I could talk to a seller, talk to you, talk to any, it's like, it's just talking to people. It's
Hmm.
asking good questions. It's really getting to know them. What are they really going through? And after that process, it was just very eye opening that, a lot of good people around us helping us get there.
So you found your opportunities. You were closing a higher percentage after that sales training.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, no question. I mean, there was sales training, and then they helped us with our follow-up processes and systems and stuff, and then it was like game over. Just we knew that we had that dialed in at that point.
Got it. Okay. And then the last seat you sat in was the finances.
Yes.
And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that here. Tell me about what that was like and what were you responsible for repairing?
Sure. So at that time, the person who was in that seat moved on to a different role, and I took that over. And basically, from entering transactions to managing the budgets for the company to just learning everything about it. And I know I look like it, but I don't have any accounting background. So that's what I typically get. So I totally get that perception, but I don't have that background. So I sat down basically and would call the CPA all the time, like, what does this mean? Where does this go? What does it, teach me about the financial statements. Like, I want to deep dive into this. And to me, I had already sat in acquisitions, dispositions. I had sat in those different seats. This one now, the finance seat, put it all together of here's what really happens with the money when we're marketing the property, when we're acquiring it, when we're selling it or turning it into a rental. Like, I got to see the whole story and picture then of what was happening in the business. So to me, it was like my eyes had already been opened in all these seats. And then now this was like the total picture of now I know how the money's flowing through the company. And now I know what is broken or what really needs fixed, like not just what our perception is, but like the data that's right there telling me what is wrong with the company or how can we make this better. So that was another eye-opening experience.
So how was the company when you took over that seat?
So at that time, it sounds really sexy to say we're doing 25 or 30 deals a month.
Yeah.
But as much as was coming in the door, that much or more was going out. It was like 6-7 figure months sometimes and 6-7 figure months with the expenses too, because we had a lot of overhead, a lot of people.
Right. And I think that it's hard to say it, but I think at the same time, a lot of people experience it. I mean, I can say, there have been multiple times in my business throughout all the years where I'm saying to myself or saying out loud, I'm making a lot of freaking money.
Right.
Where the hell is it?
Yep.
And I imagine you've dealt with a handful of clients. I felt the same way.
Oh man, handful is not strong enough. I've seriously just this year. What is this? This is February 16th.
Middle of the second month.
Right, of the second month. And I've already had over 100 calls of people that
really
want to either use our service or like have gone down this path. And like 93 of them are in that scenario of I'm making money, where is it? I need help. And I feel like that it's just, I hear it all the time now. Yes, with the clients we work with or just people getting on the call, just exploring it of like, what is going on? I'm making money, but I have no idea where it's going. I'm not paying myself what I deserve. I hear it all the time now, and just with the seat and with the company that we have currently.
We're going to talk about that for sure. I'm going to just write that down, not paying myself. So let's say, someone's on the call, listening right now, and they reach out to you.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, David, like, this situation describes me exactly. Right? I'm making a lot of money. I'm closing double digit, right? Because everyone wants to do double digit. That's like, there's the two figures I hear a lot, for our coaching applications is I want to do 10 deals a month or I want to do 100,000 a month. Like, those are the two overarching themes, right? So I'm calling you, David, I'm doing 10 deals a month and I'm making 100,000 plus a month, but I have nothing to show for it. What's the first thing you typically say to them?
The first thing I typically say is that it's okay. Thank you for at least reaching out. That's usually the first thing. People are embarrassed. They're ashamed. They're taking coaching from amazing people that got them to those 10 deals because they are the deal maker. They're the closers. They're the people that love the deal. And now they're sitting there embarrassed that I'm making 100,000. Like, I've hit the goals. The thing that I told Steve I want to become this 100,000 person or 10 deals a month, and I have nothing to show for it. And so the first thing I'm usually saying is, hey, you're okay. No need to be embarrassed. Thank you for at least coming on this call.
Yeah.
Because it's just that first interaction of saying, I'm tired of not seeing the money. That is usually the big indicator of like, they're ready. They're ready to make that shift to not just making the money, but keeping it as well too.
Yeah.
So that's really the first thing I'm telling them is like, don't be embarrassed, because we don't. This is not something that you're going to call Steve for, because you do the sales, you do the making, the 10 deals a month. And there's not a ton of people out there that say, I have this course, and guess what? you're going to do the 10 deals a month, but I'm going to help you keep the money. Or like,
Right.
we hear the accountants and bookkeepers and like we start running. Like even those words get me just like bleh, on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's not a lot on this side of actually keeping it. And I'm not just talking about CPAs and a tax perspective. I'm talking about true business money management, like actually being able to say, I'm making this money, but I also know where it's going. I know how I'm spending it. I know how I can increase it or decrease this or whatnot in order to make more and put more in my pocket and in the people that I care about, my employees, and making sure that they're taken care of too. So that's where I feel like a lot of people know how to make the money and do the deals. They have great mentors, great coaches, great trainers, but they don't have someone with the opposite skill to say, this is how you keep it.
Yeah.
So it's really talking about a lot of that.
Well, Jason Medley, who runs Collective Genius,
Yep.
which you and I are both part of,
Yep.
he says all the time, right? Like making money is a skill, keeping
Yep.
money is a discipline. And I think that, I mean, there's two things here. First, there's kind of like, I want to say that the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, we've become more used to saying like, I'm not okay, right? Like mental illness for a very long time
Right.
is something that was frowned upon. Like people look down on you and so on. And I think now it's okay to say like, hey guys, like I'm not okay. I need help, right?
Right.
So I think the second step probably is the financial component, right? Like there are a lot of people killing it, crushing it, but not having a lot to show for it. So I think, I admire, you say you got 93 people so far this year already saying that, because that's the first step
Right.
in terms of turning that around.
Exactly. That's why I'm doing what I do now. Because a lot of people have told me like this is not the popular thing, this is not the sexy thing, or whatnot. And I'm like, I'm saving businesses, or I'm guiding these businesses. Like these are lives, like that with their families, their significant others, or with their business partners, and like just spinning their wheels. And I'm
Mhm.
like, this is a system, this is a simple way to get out of that rat race, like to get out of your real estate rat race that you've built for yourself with these 10 deals a month
Mhm.
and with this 100,000 a month. So that's why the company, the book, it was the 25 deals a month that we were doing, 30 deals a month, and saying, where the heck is all the money? Like,
Right.
why are we doing this? Why do we have this many people? Why are we doing this many deals if we're not going to all show something for it? So
Right.
it was just born from a lot of that pain and frustration, and seeing it in the people that were close to me too. And that's where I wish back then, would have had a system like this or something. That's why this mission, that's why I'm very glad that you're having me out here, just being able to talk about this, because it is something that I feel like a lot of people don't want to talk about or
Mhm.
feel ashamed or whatnot. And it's like, it's okay. It's okay
Right.
to talk
That
about
is okay. It's actually more commonplace than you think.
it. Way more commonplace than you think. It's those people that have reached out that, yes, are taking that first step. But for those 100, there's 1,000 other entrepreneurs that are starting with those 5 deals, 10 deals, they're first starting out. And they're like, where the heck is all the money? Like,
Right.
I've just done 10 deals for like at least 10,000 a pop, and I have no idea where my money's going.
And I can say it, so you and I, we both presented at CG. You presented
Yep.
on the main stage, I presented in the room, but I kind of shared my own personal story, right? Like
Yep.
the doing the deals and like literally like having nothing, like the you can get $39.99 a month to death, right? You can get it $900 a month forever, right? You get this tool, that tool, and you get all these overhead. And it's really hard because you don't know which one to cut. If you're not tracking your marketing, you don't know which one to cut,
Right.
right? A, and then B, you're like, if I cut this and this hurts my business, like you kind of like in this, what do they call it? Is it
Catch-22?
is it the debtor's prison
Yes.
in a way, right?
Yep.
You're like, you are obligated to pay this, and if you quit this, like you don't know if the cage is gonna get a little bit smaller.
Right.
So, all right, so we talked about, the first thing is like, hey, the talking to you and acknowledging it. What's the next step?
So from there, it's actually diving in on the money side and being able to talk about, okay, where are we right now? And the first thing that we do is, what do you need as a business owner? Like, do you know that number to take care of your family?
Yeah, so it's take home. What do you need to take
Exactly.
home?
What do you need take home? So that way there's not the struggle. So that way your wife's not saying, why are you doing this? Or why, or your husband or whatever, like, why are you doing this? So it's getting that and really knowing what that number is. Because a lot of people don't even start there. They don't, in the business, they've even been doing it for a while because they think, I've got enough, I'm cushioned, and it's like they've never taken the time to sit down and say, what do we really need? Let me involve my significant other or business partner or spouse or whatever in these conversations to say, what do we really need? Then we like to have conversations from there along the same track of what do you want? You
Mhm.
know, like, okay, $100,000 a month. What does that mean to you? You know, like, how much of that do you want to take home? So now, if we're building margin in here, what do you really want and
Yeah.
need? You know, so having those conversations and being real with yourself of what do I need? And then what is going to make me super excited? What's going to get my wife out of bed in the morning too, saying, you better go to that real estate investing job so that
Mhm.
way you can keep bringing this home. You know, like, what are those numbers that get everyone in your family excited?
Yeah. I mean, you hear people potentially in their worst spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad they wrote this book, Profit First for Real Estate Investing, right?
Yep.
So I read Mike McAlloway's Profit First many, many years ago. And
Yep.
man, that was such an eye-opening book. You know, kind of like there's a handful of books, right? There's the Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yep.
like opens other eyes on that. There's the Miracle Morning, like, oh,
Yep.
right, you can actually wake up early and get more done.
Right.
Crazy, right? And another one is Profit First. Like, wait a minute, I'm allowed to pay myself first.
Right.
So
Exactly.
let's talk about
Yeah,
that, right?
let's
Because you
talk
talk
about
about how much you need to take home. Why is that so important in line with profit first?
So there's two big parts to profit first, and it's first that mindset. So we love our formulas, right? As
Mhm.
real estate investors. So the formula we're fed, the BS formula that we're fed, is sales minus expenses equals profit. Meaning I make a sale, I pay everyone else and their mother, and whatever I have left over is my profit. At the end of the year, most likely is when we're trying to wait for that payday.
Whatever's still in the bank account.
Exactly, whatever's still in the bank account. And then that's when your CPA accountant person says, "Hey, you made 100,000." Then you look at the bank account and there's $10 in there. You're like, "Where the heck did all that money go?"
Mhm.
So that's where you're always thinking about expenses first. Profit first, the formula flips it on its head to think about the things that we need to think about first. It says sales minus profit equals expenses, meaning I make a sale, I take my profit off the table, I take that profit first, then I have the expenses left over. You know, that's the last thing to think about
Yeah.
because we need to make sure we're building an actual business. An actual business is profitable. A for-profit business should be profitable. It should be profitable from the perspective that the business is giving you a return and paying you
Right.
and the business owner, because so many people get burned out. They get, stuck in that real estate rat race of living deal to deal, living month to month. They're making, the decisions from their fear because they're like, I have to have that next deal because I have no margin and I have to go over even if it's a slim deal. They're making all these decisions from, like the perspective of I'm paying my expenses first and hopefully I'll have something at the end of the day versus we're going to make sure we have our oxygen masks on. We're going to make sure that the business is healthy. We're going to make sure that we're running a true business here that supports why I even started real estate investing before we get into the rat race trap of like, okay, I got to just reinvest every single dollar back in. Because I am not against reinvesting.
Mhm.
I am against it though. If you are struggling, you're on life support, you've got debtors coming after you, you've got your wife or spouse or significant other or business partner coming after you, like, when are we going to get paid?
Don't forget Uncle Sam.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's just every single person. So it's like anyone that is in your life, like making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So that's that first step in profit first is switching that mindset and that focus to building good habits in your business, good financial habits, good profitability habits, making profit a habit in your business. That's the first thing, to unlock. I will say though, we as real estate investors, we have already on this show talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mhm.
And we've already talked about that mindset in other good books like The Miracle Morning or The Richest Man in Babylon. Portion of all I have is mine to keep. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad says, pay yourself first. We've heard that. That message is communicated to us as a real estate investor. But with all the calls I'm taking, it doesn't sink in until there's a true system for it.
So I think this is something that I experienced as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, growing up, I did learn financial discipline from my parents.
Yep.
Right. And, save money, put money aside, put money in your 401k. That's a whole different conversation.
Right. Yes.
Disagreeable. But, put your money in your 401k, IRA, and save so you can retire later on. But there was a lot of saving, right? Mom would say, like a penny saved, a penny earned, quoting Benjamin Franklin. But for whatever reason, once you go from W-2 to 1099, that all goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
So we all know it from Richest Man in Babylon, Dave Ramsey, and these other places, right?
Yep.
To save money and pay yourself first. But when we go to business, something changes,
Right.
right? And it's like, I got to reinvest. I got to reinvest. I got to reinvest. So I think that one thing, maybe, maybe as mentors or whatever, what this podcast is for, is that letting people know it's okay to pay yourself first. Because there's so many people that are like, I got to hustle, I got to grind, hustle, grind,
Right.
hustle, grind, put it all in. And then you have nothing to show for it.
I love that you brought that up because there's literally people that we're working with that have told us, I have this money in an account and I'm scared to touch it. Like, can I touch this? Like, I don't know what I don't know from the business side. No one taught me the business financial management. Sure, I've got the Dave Ramsey or I've got this, like the Richest Man in Babylon type stuff, but I don't know if does that transfer to business? Like, do I still do the same thing? So I love that you brought that up because sometimes it's just giving that permission of, you know what? Yes, it's okay because we're setting up this system. That's exactly what it's for. And we're going to know this money here is for you. This money over here is to invest in the business, and to grow it and to invest in people. So that's where just that freedom of saying, we're working with someone who understands what I need as a business owner and tells me it's okay. I've gone through that in this business that I have now currently. I have a CFO on the team where it's like, we're helping more people. Is this okay? Like I have never made this much before. I feel bad a little bit. And it's like the same thing for a real estate investor. They start making all this money, like doing 10 deals a month, doing the $100,000 months like you brought up. And it's like, is it okay to take this? Like I feel like I have to pour everything back in, or I'm doing someone a disservice out there, or like people can't know, or whatever. I've got to reinvest everything. It's like, well, no, it's okay. We need you to be healthy. We need you, if no one else on the team to be healthy, we need you to be healthy because you've got the vision. You've got the mission. You're the one you're the one bringing on acquisitions people. You're the one bringing on the team members. You're the one supporting all these people. And it's like, you have to be healthy. So yeah, it's like,
you're steering the boat.
You're steering the boat.
And if you're not, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're not safe, you're not healthy, we're all in trouble.
We're all in trouble. And that's where sometimes you just need that permission to say, yeah, it's okay. You can take this out.
And I think that people can get comfortable with the idea of bringing in $100,000 a month, doing $1 million in a year in revenue. But I think kind of to your point, something I haven't thought about before was that even though you got all that money coming in, you've never made this much money before.
Right.
And you don't know, like, am I allowed to pay myself $250,000 a year? Like, it sounds crazy.
It does.
But
doesn't it?
There is that, we do have our own baggage that we've been, we've walked around with our whole lives with.
Yes. That is so good because if you think about it, you're leveling up yourself too. Your company, as your company levels up, you are leveling up as well. So that does mean you can pay yourself more. Once you get to that level and you're like, should I be paying myself this much? Yes. You need to be growing your net worth. You need to be taking care of your family. Do you remember when you first got into real estate investing and you were like, I can't wait to make $200,000 a year or $500,000 a year? And it's like, you need a plan to get there. And along the way, you're going to have mental roadblocks because if you've been an employee before, you've got some golden handcuff shackles, like on your mindset of like, should I, like, I need to be doing everything all the time as a, like, even if I'm the business owner, I need to be in everything, or I still have to have my claws into some of these different areas. And it's like, as you are growing as an entrepreneur, business owner, and from the leadership perspective, you also need to go from the financial perspective of, it's okay to make more. It's okay. Now I'm going to be making more. What do I do with it? Then it raises a whole lot more fun questions because now I'm making more than I've ever made. What can I spend in my personal life, and what do I need to reinvest in other areas and make sure I'm, taking care of what has been entrusted with, that I'm taking home. So.
And I think something that's, you kind of talked about earlier was that, the hustle and grind and investing, right? And I think kind of to the point, I think you're kind of going that direction was that it's okay to reinvest back in business if it's a conscious choice.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. As long as you still have the habits of paying yourself. Because like with this system, you're setting up accounts to be for your benefit, for the business owner's benefit. So as long as you are still making sure that you're paid what you need, that the business is profitable, that you've still got those percentages or whatever that might be, even if you're like, you know what, I want to take a couple percents from my profit in order to reinvest back in the business and grow, as long as it's a conscious choice and you're still keeping the same habits of good financial management, making sure you're still paid what you're needing, that the company is still profitable,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're growing from that perspective and not from, you know what, we're going to cut all this off. I'm just going to dump everything back into this, and then we're going to hopefully scale out of our, scale into profitability. And where it's like, I love how Keith Cunningham puts it in his books. He's like, if you've got a growth and a tumor, adding more to a cancerous business only grows the tumor,
Yeah.
like versus a healthy business where you're like, let's invest into this healthy business. So yes, a conscious choice and keeping the same habits that got you to be profitable.
Now, I think a lot of what we're talking about sounds really commonsensical, right? If someone's listening to this, they're like, what the heck are these guys talking about? Like, this is all common sense. Now, those that are experiencing it know
Right.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the why, right?
Yeah.
So Parkinson's Law, you want to talk about why why the formula is wrong in Parkinson's Law.
Right. So Parkinson's Law says the amount of time I have to do something, I give myself to do something, is the time that it will take. So if I give my 3 weeks for a project, it'll take me 3 weeks. If it's 3 days, it'll take 3 days. And it's the same thing with your money. If you give yourself too much money, like if you have this one big bank account
Mm-hmm.
where everything goes in and everything goes out and you're just tossing a cash salad all the time, one day you feel like a king or queen because you've got $1 million in that account and you're like, I could spend on this marketing or this mastermind or hiring this new person and what, and then the next day payroll runs, all your other marketing channels run, and like now that account is like way down and it's drained and you're like, oh shoot, where did all that money go?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because you have that one account, you feel like if I have a bunch of money, I can spend it. And if I don't have a bunch of money, I'm going to be more frugal with it. And that's what this whole point and this whole system is about. It's about taking your profit first off the table, so that way you're not mingling it and what you should be paying yourself with what the expenses are of the business. So that way you've got a different bank account just for the expenses. So that way you see, these are the expenses for the business so I can run it, but it's not touching what I'm paying myself or what I want, what I choose the profitability to be for the business.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're separating out that, because that's where now, if you've got those good habits, you're setting that up, then you're truly becoming a profitable business and giving yourself control. You're controlling your money now. You control of, if I have money in that account, I can spend it in the OpEx account or my operational expense account. If I don't have the money there, then I'm either going to have to figure out how to do more deals, or I'm going to have to figure out something in order to fill that bucket back up.
Right.
So it's like making you and forcing you to be a savvy business owner just from knowing that if I give myself less to work with, I'm going to be more savvy in order to make sure that I keep this profit over here secure and safe, and make sure that our family and our personal needs are taken care of.
So Ryan Panetta, he was on the show a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and he shared the story of when he borrowed some money as a second loan, right, to put as a down payment on another house.
Yep.
And he had gotten a loan for repairs for a flip, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that money was in that same account. So he spent it as a down payment for another house.
Ooh.
And then when it was time to make those repairs, that bank account was not looking so good. So he had to figure something out. But
Right.
that's the risk we run when putting everything through one account.
One account, exactly. And that's where, even in the book, Profit First for Real Estate Investing, I dedicate a whole chapter to reserves, number one. And then number two, I talk about OPM, how that should be an account that you set up. Other people's money that isn't mingled with your expenses and with what it takes to run the business. Because if you're a real estate investor and growing that way, you can go out all day long and secure private money or hard money or whatever, because you've got assets and you've got real things that people want to invest in. But now you are needing to be so responsible for that money.
Even more responsible.
Even more responsible. So that's why I always encourage people, open up a separate account, call it OPM. Don't mingle all that money together, because you're going to feel like a freaking king one day, or queen. And like now you don't just have all your money in there, you have other people's money in that one big account. So it's like, please separate, for the love of God, separate that out. So that way, this is the money I have for my projects. This is the money I have to run the business. Because if you start dipping into this project money, that's already a big red flashing light inside your business, or vice versa. So it's like, that's the other thing too. You run out of project money and have to start eating to your OpEx, your operational expenses. That's going to be a red light for you too. You're like, now I'm having to contribute to this. What happened? Like, did we go over budget or whatnot? It's another warning light for you as the business owner. So,
Yeah. So hopefully we've sold people on step one of just changing the formula.
Yes.
What's the second step?
So the second step in the system is actually setting up bank accounts. So it's like actually physically setting up like the jar system or like the envelope system that you might have heard from, like Dave Ramsey or whatnot. Not that I agree with everything that he teaches, but
he's right most of the things.
For most of the things.
There's a few things he's just really wrong about.
Exactly. So in real estate investing and for what we do with our money, those envelopes are a great thing because now instead of one of the big mistakes we see is having that one big bank account where everything goes in and out, tossing the cash salad, but having separate bank accounts specifically for you. Now in the book, I call the first 3 accounts to open the golden trio. Because I love, come on, look at me. I love Harry Potter. I love Star Wars. I love these big epic sagas. So I absolutely love those where they have the 3 main heroes. You've got Luke, Luke, Han, and Leia, or Harry, Ron, Hermione, always making sure that good wins in the end. And your business is your epic saga. It is you are living out your epic saga with your business, with your story that you're creating right now. So you need 3 main heroes inside of your business. You need these 3 accounts that are always working for you to make sure you win in the end, whatever that end is. If that's selling the business, passing it on to your kids, passing it on to employees, leaving a legacy, whatever it might be. Setting up those 3 accounts is one of the first big steps of taking that step in the direction of being a true business owner and saying we're going to be profitable, drawing a line in the sand and saying we're going to be profitable now because we're going to actually fund these accounts and they're going to be our business is going to be profitable. So that first account, open up a profit account. Second account, owner's compensation. Third account, owner's tax. We call that the golden trio, or for the owner's benefit. Those 3 accounts are all for the owner's benefit. Because the difference between profit and owner's account, because I get this question all the time for those 2 accounts, profit is something you take quarterly where you're either paying down bad debt that's keeping you up at night, or you're taking that, like half of what's in that profit account, and celebrating and say, this is why I freaking started my business. To be profitable and to actually take this money out and say, and not feel guilty about taking money out of this and saying, I'm actually getting a return for my hard work, my sweat equity, or the equity that I have in my company. The owner's compensation is for you, the business owner, to be paid consistently for what the work you do in the business. So that way you actually have an account. This is why if you're just getting into real estate, you start funding that owner's compensation bucket until you have consistently enough to walk away from your W-2. So it's like that one account is for making sure you're paid consistently. Then owner's tax. Like how many times have I heard shoot, it's almost April 15th or October 15th. I've got to do 3 more deals right now just to cover my tax bill, or I've got to be on a payment plan and pay them back, over this time. This account is to make sure, especially if you're wholesaling or doing an active business, that you're saving for the taxes throughout the year. So setting up those 3 accounts will be revolutionary to your business. If you do that, I promise, if you listen to this episode, take action, a year from now, you'll be like, I have more money than I've ever had in my business before. That's a guarantee. If you can just open those accounts and start funding them with just 1%. So those are the 3 accounts. The 4th account would be like an income account where everything comes in and it sits for you to be able to then push it to those other accounts.
Yeah.
So that's another big one too. We all want to feel in control of our money. And if you have been listening so far, I haven't talked about the financial statements or any accounting jargon. This is all something you could do as a business owner.
Right.
You could set up these accounts. You can transfer it. So this income account is for you, the business owner now, to move your money, because now you'll be in control of where your money goes versus just having that one big pot where transactions come in, transactions go out. What the heck is happening?
Well, I like this because this is something you could explain to a 3rd grader and they can go do this right now. Right? It's the envelope system.
It's the envelope system for business. So there's that income that you already have, that 5th account, the OpEx. You're already paying the expenses. You already have the villains of your business, to go out the door. So those 5 fundamental accounts are what make up the opening up the bank accounts of Profit First. And I tell people, if you don't want to go with the whole system or you're just learning about it on the first time, if all you did from this thing was open one bank account, call it Profit, and transfer 1% in there, You're building the muscle. You're building the habit, that habit of profitability. That's what the system's about. Don't worry about like, okay, how much percentage should go in this account, or like, should I open a different account for this or whatnot? Do all that. That's great. That's as you get more advanced. But if you're just starting out, the whole point of the system is to be profitable and make it a habit. So like just set up that one account, and I promise a year from now, you'll have multiple accounts and they'll all be funded, and you'll be like, holy crud, why have I not started this sooner? So that's the second step, is opening up those accounts.
So the tax thing is it's funny you bring that up, because I've known multiple people. They're like, holy crap, I need to close 3 deals between now and April 15th so I can pay Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing too was you talking about the wage account. So I might have upset some people in the past, but what I've always said was that if you're not paying yourself a regular wage, you don't have a real business.
Oh, I 100% agree with that statement. 100%. If you can't pay yourself, you don't have a real business. What is the definition of a business?
So let's talk about this, right? Like the people that aren't paying themselves. I mean, like, I guess we kind of talked about it. Like, this is the set way. So you talked about, you said you wrote a chapter about reserves.
Yes.
How much should someone have in reserves? I tried looking this up, on Google and those other things. So I was like, I said, screw it. 6 to 12 months. If we have 6 to 12 months of OpEx, we should be fine. So what is the right answer?
So the right answer, there's so many right answers, right? It depends on who's watching this and what they're comfortable with.
The one that's got the David Richter stamp.
The David Richter stamp, I would say at least 3 months of reserves. So 1 quarter. A lot of people can have a bad month in real estate. They'll be okay because they make it up for the next month. Closings get pushed back. If you have a bad quarter in real estate, sometimes it's harder to recover.
Yeah.
That's when you feel, because so many people reach out and they're like, I'm on the real estate roller coaster here, like income up and down, just like all the time. Having at least a quarter will give you that security and peace of mind. And I do. I dedicate a whole chapter of the book to reserves because I know I've done 850 deals. Like I get it, that where I don't want to have lazy money. I want everything out there on the street. I want to deploy it. And that's where I did. I had to do soul searching. And after talking with and implementing with real estate investors, like write a whole chapter and say, this is what reserves will do for you. So I give a lot of examples in there, like OPM, other people's money. It'll be way easier to attract other people's money and grow your business without your cash if you have some of your cash to be able to show those lenders, like banks too, institutional finance, funding, private lenders, hard money lenders, like they love that stuff. So like that's one huge reason, like if you're wanting to scale your company and not use your own money, but then also people don't realize the psychological effect on them if they have reserves. Not having to have that next deal, not having to close it just because you're like, I'm not living deal to deal. I've got money in my reserve account. I've got the money to be able to weather a storm. Like I don't need to take the slim deals. I don't need to do these things. Like it just gives that peace of mind to the business owner to say, I don't have to live from fear and like make these decisions from that fear, but instead from my purpose. Like that's what the reserves really do. It gives you the better opportunities to make better decisions of how to really do the things that are going to move the needle and move your revenue needle too.
So ideally, so it was at least 3 months.
At least 3 months.
Ideally.
I love 6 to 12. So yes, that's where a lot of the people we work with, we want to get them to 6 to 12 months of reserves. So that way they could take off a year. That's the other thing about reserves is you don't know when the next market crashes or whatever. Like everyone always says that. So obviously this is for you to be able to weather those storms and to capitalize on them, those opportunities. But also, what about personal storms? What if you have a personal crash and that could be a sickness of yourself or a significant person in your life, a mom, dad, spouse, child. Like what if you had to take 6 to 12 months off and support them? So it's like, that's what the business should be providing that peace of mind for you as well too, to be able to say, I have to walk away right now and maybe even shut everything down, and it's like, and then that way you could at least weather those storms without having to say, shoot, I wonder how the business is doing. And like, you know what, I know they just went into surgery, but I got to make this call real quick, like, and do this deal. It's like, it gives you some of that peace of mind as well too.
Yeah. Anything else in the process before we get into people's questions?
Oh man, just start with that one account. Start opening that account so that way you can get into the habit of being profitable. That's what this system is about. That's why I did. I built up a little rental portfolio. I was doing some of my own deals. Like I sold all of that to start this movement now of like, please, for the love of God, stop living in your real estate rat race. When we can get out of that, there's a system for this, a simple system to be able to pay yourself. So there you go. There's my last 2 cents before
All
we
right.
go into the
And
questions.
so, and like again, right? Like he's done over 850 deals. Like this is not something that's like kind of like theory. Like
No,
you're
I've seen it. I've
you
lived it.
knees deep, hands deep, chest deep in it. So,
Yep.
so before we get to the questions, how much should someone put into self development, or is there such a thing for like because we talk about Brian Tracy, Darren Hardy, right?
Yep.
10% to tithing, 10% to personal development, right? Like, do
Yep.
you have any kind of figures for this?
As far as a figure goes, I don't have a specific figure. I would say 10% is a good amount because that's about what we're spending, like on masterminds or going and
Mm,
sharpening the axe or mentorship or whatnot. So I would say 10% is a great target because that's the best investment we know that you're going to make because that's where you learn stuff like this. You
yeah.
learn the sales, you learn how to be a better business owner, you learn financial management. So yeah, I would say 10% for sure. And then when in doubt with this system, add an account. Open up an account for personal development and say, I'm going to stick 10% of every deal in there because I know that I want to level up my game over this next year. And this is what I have to spend on coaches, mentors, masterminds, programs, whatever. So that way I can be, so that way it also shows you this is the amount that I have. So I have to be very selective of who I go to, the training that I get, what do I need. So I
Yeah.
would say 10% is a very healthy number.
You know Larry Yatch?
Oh, yeah. I love Larry.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we spent 35,000, right, just to
Yep.
have him coach all the leaders in our organizations, and it's been mind
Mind
blowing
blowing.
for sure. I already know we made that money back. All right, so guys, if you need help in your business, schedule a call with our team. Just send me a DM on Instagram, help, and then we will help you in the best way that we can. So questions so far. So Corey G on YouTube, what's the average profitability margins you see for wholesaling operations? So you put
Ooh.
30 to 40%, but I think that might be optimistic. So what do you typically see?
Well, I would honestly say for wholesale, let's define that too, because I'm going to have a totally different what I say is profit. Because like let's think about this. You say you're a seven-figure business. Most people are talking about their gross profit.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, that's great. So what's your gross profitability percentage, or like what's your net profitability, or in profit first, what's your cash profitability margin? So there's like different things. So I'm going to do it from the one that most people think of is net profitability on their profit and loss that their accountant shows them at the end of the year of like, or what they can log in and see, this is my net profit. For wholesaling businesses, now, this is a lot of people add in what they're paying themselves to. We've seen as high as like 50% net profitability where someone that's running super efficiently that can really, and it's just strictly wholesaling. Fix and flips, not that high. The highest we're seeing is 27 to 30% for fix and flip. Wholesales, 30 to 50% is really healthy. And we see that the wholesalers being able to achieve that higher margin. There was one person we worked with, they were at 27%. They started focusing on their profit. They're at 52% right now.
That's
Because
incredible.
it's like they know they need to be focused on these areas in order to really pump out that profit percentage. So
Do you know what it is across the industry?
across the industry,
Mm-hmm.
I can only speak for the ones where we're digging into their books. I would say it is closer to that 30%, where a lot of people are closer to that 30% margin of, that's where their net profitability is.
I think you're a little high. So
At
anyway,
least with the people that we're working with. That's
with the
where
people you're working
disclaimer.
with, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think that's a little high.
Yeah.
And then the best you've seen says 52%. So, Ben on YouTube, with all the different strategies in real estate investing, how do you encompass all the different needs of each strategy or business when you suggest the profit first account splits in your book?
Yes. I love this. So if you did read the book, I've got different setups for different types of businesses. And if you have multiple entities inside of your business, this is something I cover in there too, that do different types of exit strategies, like fix and flip versus rentals, or active versus a passive type of investment. I would set up the accounts for those specific, I would treat them differently. I would treat them like two totally different businesses and say, these are my accounts for the fix and flip. These are my accounts for the rentals. These are my percentages that I'm shooting for the rentals. These are percentages I'm shooting for the fix and flips. And that's how we set it up with a lot of the people that we're working with. But if you've got like multiple LLCs or multiple entities for the same type of business, I would create like master accounts for all those different entities and just be like, this is how we're doing overall or whatnot. So that's how we've handled it with people. But if it's different exit strategies, split it out.
Yeah. And then same from Ben is, what do you think about guys who borrow a couple extra $1,000 from a private money lender on top of the secured loan to take into their business to cover marketing or OpEx expense?
As long as you are telling the investor that you're doing that, like that I don't want you getting a property loan and then using it for the business. So it's like, is this just an unsecured loan that they're giving to you because they trust you as the business owner that you're able to use for whatever to grow the business? So make sure that you're just very careful, that you're very above the board, that you're going to tell them like what you're going to be doing with that. But I'd be very careful of taking project money and then using it for other things. It's for no other reason, besides obviously telling the investor, but then getting in that habit. That quickly becomes a habit of, I'm getting extra money, I'm going to do that, and now I'm going to be able to cover more of my expenses versus I need to do more deals or I need to figure out a better solution to bring more revenue in to be able to grow to where I want to without having to use private money all the time for whenever there's a new stage of growth. So.
Yeah. And Jamil, who you probably know too.
Yes.
Right, we talked a long time ago, like, one of the best ways, or a lot of Ponzi schemes just don't start off as Ponzi schemes.
Right.
They start off as mismanaged funds.
Exactly.
And it gets worse
and worse and worse. And you're like, oh, shoot, I'm paying for Project B's, for Project B's project with Project, X's money, like it snowballs that much. And we're like, oh, shoot, we got to now, we've got to make sure that we have a plan to get that back on track.
Yeah, I see Stephen Collier here. So thank you, Stephen, for all the comments. So on Facebook, Anthony, what is the most common mistake you see investors make in the first 36 months?
Ooh, great question. First mistake I see is not having a system for the money. You're listening to the Real Estate Disruptors podcast. Like, Steve is a millionaire maker. Like, we don't say these things just because it's a marketing scheme or whatnot. We say these things because it's going to happen. You take action as a real estate investor. You listen to these guys. You're going to, and gals, you're going to make the money. So the biggest mistake I see is that there's no plan once you make the money, what to do with that money. Like being very intentional with every dollar. Because if you do this from your first deal and building good habits, you're now building a habit and that muscle from deal 1 that scales to that habit of deal 1,000. And doing 10 deals a month, and like getting to that point. So the biggest mistake I see is people abdicating and just saying, I'm going to give this to the bookkeeper. I'm not going to think about the finances. Hopefully they'll just take care of all that stuff and I could just do deals. And it's like, you don't just need to do deals. You need to direct that money. Where's the best usage for that money to go? And are you getting into good profitability habits? So that's where, right from the beginning, this is for you, the real estate investor who's just starting out. Start this system now and you'll build better habits than when I already have, when I get back next week, 10 calls with people already scheduled where they're wanting to come on to say, help, I'm on fire. They're, like they're running around with a chicken with their head cut off because now they've scaled up and now it's a big mess. So it's like, before you get to that point, because 36 months down the road, you can get to that point very quickly. Like, in the first 12 months, get into good profitability habits, get a financial management system, cash flow system like Profit First to manage that cash on the other side, because you're going to make that money.
Yeah, I think that's a very great point. And it's just, I still remember reading all the testimonials, right? In Mike's first book, and all these guys that started the right way. And then when they became really successful, like that profit stayed the same and they did really well as the business grew.
Right.
And yeah, sales and marketing, sales is sexy, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
Sign contracts, big checks, that's sexy. Marketing, cool too.
Oh yeah.
Right. But money, right? Like it's I would rather cold call. There was a time, not today.
Sure.
There was a time I would rather cold call than look at my books.
Yep.
Right? Like if you look at all the different things we have to do in our business and we get stuck or whatever, I would rather cold call than look at QuickBooks.
Exactly. And we understand that. I understand that. That's why we started this company too to be in between a bookkeeper and CPA because that's all they focus on is the books, the transactions. And for us, it's what do those numbers mean? Like
Right.
we don't even let's take the data out of there and like build a dashboard for you and be like, this is where you can pull these levers now. Cause yeah, that's why I'm like, when people try, like and interview me or whatnot or on other things and they start bringing up accounting or bookkeeping, I'm like, please just for the love of God, that's not what they want to hear. Like because no one wants to really talk about that as a business owner. You care about the cash in the business and making the money and doing the deals and what you take home in your pocket.
Right.
And that's where, what are the levers that pull that? So yeah, I totally understand that too. So it's like, you don't abdicate and just let everything go. But there's a point too where you need to just be looking at the highest numbers from those systems and saying, okay, what are the levers to pull? Because I love this. This perspective for me was great. I've got a personal mentor, and he said that a lot of people love to solve problems. Like we're entrepreneurs. That's what we do all day long, right?
Right.
We solve problems. The biggest thing in business, though, is knowing the best problems to solve. Those numbers uncover those best problems to solve, whether it's with a system, a process, a person, cash flow management, whatever it might be. It's a red neon light for the ones who know what they're looking for to say, here's what the problem is. Let's fix it. So it's like knowing that is really what's going to help you
Yeah, the clarity.
get that clarity.
Yeah, and I don't know how many times I lied to myself. It's like, all right, this weekend I'm gonna look at the numbers. This week I'm gonna look at the finances.
Right.
Yeah, it's just
Yep. And
countless
then it never
lies.
comes. Yep. That's where accountability.
David Nicholson on Facebook. Is there any kind of platform that allows you to see all these accounts in tandem? He has accounts with multiple banks and it's cumbersome to view them all.
So besides a QuickBooks, a QuickBooks takes everything and puts it into the one format. And like now I'm getting into the accounting portion. So buckle up. Please stay with me. So like on the balance sheet, it'll show you, even if you have multiple bank accounts spread across multiple banks, it'll show you in one clear place. Like this is the different bank accounts that I have, no matter where the banks are and how much I have in each of them. So if as long as you have something like that with a QuickBooks like online system, that's one place to do it. Then there are like online management softwares or systems or tools that, some people use for that. It could be like, like some of these tools I think of like a Reach reporting or Fathom. There's some other types of reporting tools that kind of do that as well too, bring it together. But if you've got a QuickBooks and whatnot, you could literally pull up your balance sheet and say, okay, I just want to connect all my business accounts and they're going to show up here on my assets. Like Robert Kiyosaki says in his books. They're going to be right there. Cash is one of your assets. So that's an easy way, an easy hack to see all of your accounts if they're spread out across multiple places.
Yeah, and QuickBooks, I again, that's the place to go.
Yeah.
You got to have QuickBooks online. I believe. So Kai Wynn on YouTube, what do you do when you run into mental hurdles or you get stuck?
What do I do personally? Oh man, that's great. I have mentors. So I have a personal mentor that I pay a lot of money to reach out to. I also have amazing team members. I have a great right-hand man who is the CFO and like COO of the company where I talk about, this is the angst I'm feeling right now. Is this legitimate? Is this valid? And talking through those things as a business owner. Then books. I'm a huge avid reader. One of the books I'm going through right now is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it's a great personal book. Just the 4 agreements that you should set up with yourself. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make any assumptions and always do your best. So it's like things like that where, like you said, it's like being able to say, I need help, at these times, and this is where I'm going to get it from. So yeah, that's where a lot of that I go to. One of my personal heroes too, I'm just going to throw this out there, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, especially with a 5-year-old daughter now. Thank God for him. It's like being able to talk about those things that you were talking about. And I have this, my wife got me a calendar. She got me it last year and did this again this year of all Mr. Rogers quotes. We have a daily huddle with our team. So I start with those. We have a weekly huddle with our whole team, like more of a, culture building. So I, always start with one of those quotes because it gets me to think deeply at the very beginning of the day. So that's another thing too that kind of keeps me sharp from, am I giving people emotional paychecks? Am I being that emotional support to them? Am I getting that too? So there you go. There's a couple of the hacks for me that I go to.
On Instagram, at Atress Chitta, If you were starting with $5,000 to wholesale, how would you structure the business?
So if I were starting with 5,000, so this is money that you've already saved. So this to me shows me that you're already on the right path because you have the $5,000 where a lot of people just get in and they say, I have no money. How can I do real estate? No money down.
Mhm.
So I would say, first of all, that money might be best spent on like a Steve Trang or on, like a system to teach you how to duplicate the deals, duplicate that deal flow. How fast can you systematize the business to where you're getting consistent deals in the door? So that's where I'm going to say the first time you make 5,000, I'm going to say it's totally different. Now you need to split it up into the different buckets. But if you have 5,000 to invest, I would invest it in yourself to say, how can I make this business as consistent as possible? Whether that's sales training or whatever you might be weak in, or hiring an admin person. Because the first person I believe most entrepreneurs need is an admin.
Absolutely.
Like for just the ticky-tack stuff, paperwork or whatnot, and to do the books. Because you're not going to want to touch the books. But
No.
guess what? From day one, if you have someone in there, you're going to have the power, control, and clarity that you need to run the business if you have someone in there. So there you go. There's a couple options if you're just getting started out with $5,000.
So on Facebook, Cody Wilmoth wants to know, when's the right time to scale? How much revenue should be produced per acquisition agent, in your opinion?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to take it a different way. Has nothing to do with revenue. Has everything to do with what you're keeping. What are you keeping? First of all, are you paying yourself enough? Are you paying yourself what you deserve? If you can answer that question and say, you know what? Yes, I'm good. It's probably time to scale up. It's probably time to say, you know what? We could take a couple of the percentage points from profit and put it back into the business because if you have a system like Profit First, you know how everyone says, I feel like I hear this all the time, sales solves all problems.
Mhm.
It definitely does if you have a Profit First system,
Yeah.
because then you're adding fuel to a plane that's on its way up versus if you have no profit, you're barely squeaking by, you're barely paying off your credit card debt every month, and you're just like, you know what? I don't know if, like this next month, but I think if I scale up, it's going to be a lot better. If I do more deals, like that's going to
Mhm.
fix everything. So I would scale once you say, hey, I'm in a good place right now. We've got some profitability percentage. Now I'm going to put some of that towards actually scaling the business where you might be at 10% profitability now. Maybe you take that down to 2 or 3% for a little bit and throw those extra percentage points into hiring a kick A person, that comes on your team and revolutionizes it, or hiring a Steve or hiring a Sharper or something like that to come in to systematize the business or getting you more into that foundational level. So I would say it has more to do with how you're doing health-wise of the business than it does the revenue. Like, okay, I've hit 10,000 a month in revenue. Should I go to 20,000 now?
Yeah, I love that you talk about profit, like how much profit you're making. The other thing too is I see a lot of people make this mistake. Like they're running appointments, right? They're
Yep.
going to meet with the homeowner, and when they close, like as a business owner, you just keep that profit, right? Which
Yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
But they never pay themselves as a salesperson,
Right.
right? And so like,
Yep.
they're not paying themselves the 10, 15, 20% they would pay the next person when they replace themselves. So your profitability might be a little
Skewed
yeah.
because if you're not paying yourself what you would pay that person, how can you replace yourself?
Right. So
And
like
get out of that
you're
seat.
making 10% profitability, you're bringing this new person who now you're paying them, let's just say 10%.
Yep.
Now your profitability went 0 or negative.
Right. Exactly.
So if you're going to scale, you got to make sure that you're paying yourself for the seats that you're in. Otherwise, your profitability is not quite as accurate.
That's why I love percentages. That's why I love running the business from percentages, because then we know we scale up and down of where we are right now. Do we need to pay more to the owner, or do we need to throw more towards OpEx because now we're actually going to have a person on the team that's going to take this off the shoulders, like whatever that is in the business. As you start unloading your hats and giving them to other people, do you have the money for that? So that's why I love running off percentages, because then you can see, do we have the percentage points to be able to bring on someone, or do we not have those percentage points, or do we need to build that in over this next quarter and laser focus on our profitability before we get to that stage of like, you know what, I'll run appointments for another quarter here, but then after that, I'm going to build that profitability margin in to get someone in there.
Mhm.
And that way, Because the worst thing I hear people say is, we're just going to hire the person and we're going to make it work. And it's like,
It sounds like something I would say.
right? It's what so many people say, because they're like, I just have to get this off my plate. This will solve all my problems. And then it creates another one. It creates one where you're like stressed all the time of like, why don't I have money in there? Well, it's like, because we didn't have the profitability margin in there to hire that person at this time with where we are right now. So like, maybe we need to just focus on that for the next month or two, get to that point, and then we can bring that rock star person on.
Yeah. So softball here for you.
Okay.
So on
I like
YouTube, Corey wants to know, how is Simple CFO services apply to help a wholesale operation?
Sure. Well, our main focus is to 2 to 5x what you're taking home. That is our goal. And we work with fix and flippers, wholesalers, rentals, like any type of real estate investor. We're working with influencers too, the people that that you watch, a lot of those people, and to make sure that they're profitable. But the way we work with wholesalers is we set up the fundamental accounts, and then we're working with them consistently. We have a whole system and process too of like, these are areas in your business that you should be savvy with. Your cash flow management, how you manage debt, how you manage, like your business, and like how you have a team, like those different things. But for a wholesale company, we'd be looking at first, what do you need? What do you want? What are you paying yourself currently? And then setting up those accounts to say, we're going to start funding, so that way you are getting paid what you deserve. So that way you don't feel like burnout all the time of like, why am I going on these appointments? Why am I hiring these people? Why do I build this business? So, and also, especially with wholesaling companies, setting up that tax account. We make sure we set that tax account up, because you're going to pay taxes at the end of the year if you're just wholesaling. So making sure that you don't have those months of panic of, where is this money going to go for the tax man? Yeah. So we focus a lot more, obviously, if it's a wholesale company, on the active side of the business and what we need to make sure we're holding you as the business owner accountable to building those reserves and not touching them. Because I hear this all the time. If you're out there right now and you've set up Profit First and you've ever swept the money out of the accounts, know that you're in good company too. That's another thing that we help people stop doing, that set up Profit First. When they set up Profit First, they either get too aggressive and start putting too much in these places, and they're like, oh, shoot, like I can't pay payroll this month, so I got to sweep all this money out. And then we're breaking down the disciplines and habits that we're trying to build up. So it's like, that's another big thing too, when we start working with these companies, is like, you've started this system, you've probably hit some bumps in the road, well, let's help you smooth those out too.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of on that note, like one of the worst things that can happen, was when your accountant says, by the way, you owe $30,000 to Uncle Sam, and you look in your bank account and there's only $10,000.
Right. That's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
That's what we see with a lot of owners before they come. Then after they come, do you mind if I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
So one client we worked with, we've been working with him now for almost 3 years. So when he came to us at the end of 2019, he's like, I've lost money in my fix and flip business. I've got rentals too, and they're basically covering what we need to take home, like just our bare minimum essentials. And then he got a call from his accountant at the end of that year and said, if I were in real estate investing, looking at your business, I'd be out of there so quick. Like I would not even like be in real estate investing. So he's feeling like the worst ever. So then the next year, after working a year, implementing Profit First, focusing on profitability, he gets a call from his accountant the next year, and she says, I don't know what happened, but like, this is what you've made. And he made net multiple 6 figures this next year. And his accountant said, you actually owe taxes this year. And he's like, yeah, I actually owe some this year because I didn't like lose all the money. So he's like, even with the rentals and everything, this is what you owe. That's what the accountant said. And he said, okay, let me look at my tax account. And he's like, let me bring it up right now. And he brought it up, and he like had to, within $100, he had the money to send it to her. And he's like, where can I send this? Can I send this right now? And she's like, what? Send it right now. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I already have the money in the account to send to you. I don't want to think about this again for another year. And she was like, okay. Then it gets better. He calls me the next year, so the end of last year, and says, I just got a call from my accountant again. She said, I don't know what's working in your business, but this is what you owe in taxes again because you had another stellar year. And he said, this time I looked at the accounts and I had $20,000 extra in my account. He's like, now I'm giving myself a $20,000 refund this year instead of a couple of years ago where I was, worried, nervous about all this. That's the power of setting up an account and being disciplined and focusing on the proper things is that way you have those taxes and maybe even be able to give yourself a refund because he put that in a profit. You know what he did? He bought an RV and he's taking like a trip with his family this year and like living the best life that he's lived, the life that he wanted to as a real estate investor.
So this might not be something David agrees with, but like what I look at it is if I've overfunded my tax account, that is like party money. Like let's do whatever the heck we want with this money. It's like found money because we set it aside for Uncle Sam. And now we can go spend it irresponsibly.
We tell people put it in your profit account.
Yeah.
Put it to your profit account because then you take 50% and do that. Exactly. Yeah. Like spend it on an RV. Like do the things that you wanted to do as a business owner.
When you started.
Exactly. When you first started, you started for several reasons. Was that time freedom, money freedom, to take trips, to spend more time with your family? Like if you have this system and then you're able to have a windfall like that, do what you think back to those days and say, you know, it'd be really cool if I bought this car, or if I did this thing, or went on this trip with my family, or took my significant other to like another part of the world because that's what we've always wanted to do. So I'm 100% in agreement with that because that will save your business more than you thinking, okay, if I just use that $20,000 to go reinvest it back into something, it's like, well, what's better for you and for your mindset and for where you are right now?
For your family.
Exactly.
So, you know, you kind of touched on the accounting thing, and this isn't kind of the direction you were going with it, but I just want to add to this.
Yeah.
In my personal experience, accountants will screw you up.
Accountants
will screw you up because they're going to look at the profit first. Like, why do you have all these bank accounts? This is unnecessary. They, for whatever reason, don't understand the profit first model.
So are we going to go down this road? So here we go. I mean, you've opened a can of worms here. I started the business because I hate how accountants talk to business owners.
Yeah.
Because accountants, their real client is the IRS. They only care about make my job easier so I can report your stupid stuff to the IRS. And if I don't understand it, you need to put it in a format I understand. But the business owner's like, what the heck is going on here? I have no idea. They're talking over my head. No idea what's going on. I don't understand the tax code. And like this person's trying to get me to do something. That's where so many people have had those bad experiences that coat the industry of like, no one's going to understand from the financial perspective. That's why I started Simple CFO, because we're business strategists. We work with the owner on profit first and like these mindsets to say, you care about what you bring home and all this other stuff. Really, if you can manage the cash, all this other stuff really takes care of itself. Right. Like you need a good bookkeeper, you need a good CPA, but let them do their thing and like we'll help manage that. But you need to know what your money is doing. That's all you care about from the financial perspective and what you're owing taxes. So like, let's work on that versus the jargon and like the accounting speech and language that just goes way over everyone's heads. Like, what the heck is going on here? So yeah, it's a whole can of worms there, but there's my thoughts on accountants and how they help.
So you're also in that department. Nobody likes those poor accounts. Right. So Eamon, what percentage of out-of-state investors do you see doing really well financially versus investors working in their own market?
Ooh, good question. I would say a lot of the people that we work with are working either a combination of their own market and other markets. So I would say I don't have exact data for you from that question that you just asked me right here in front of me, but I would say that the people that go to other markets that are successful, have to build the systems that don't rely on them. So it almost forces them to open up their mindset to systems, processes, automation sooner than someone who's just like, let me just invest in my backyard because I can go there, where that sometimes slows down that person from reaching their potential sooner of having a true business. Because a true business is not just because you've replaced your W-2 income. A true business that we know is you're able to replace yourself in all seats in your business too. And if you're running a virtual business, it's easier to have that mindset sooner of like, I've got to get people there because I'm not the boots on the ground. I can't go out there and knock on, Mr. or Mrs. Seller's door here. So that's where I would say that the people that we're working with that are successful, a lot of them do out of state, or different types of markets, or it could be like adjacent markets to them. But a lot of them have branched out just because of the need and necessity as well too. But I would say if you're going down that path and you're thinking about it, that's one reason to think about wholesaling or doing real estate investing virtually, because it forces you to think differently and think systems, process, automation.
So there's a question here. You don't have to answer this.
Yeah.
What is better if you want to focus just on wholesaling, LLC or S corp?
So I don't have to answer that. Steve said it right. I'm not, just a disclaimer here. Me personally, I'm not a CPA or accountant or bookkeeper. Like, I started this company and I have amazing people on our staff. So I'm not going to give you tax advice for you, but I will say a lot of people, LLCs, taxes, and S corp, because that's where a lot of people just, they're paying themselves and it just falls into their, like their personal earnings or
Yeah.
whatnot. So
So,
that the active side, I would say.
so I'm not an accountant or CPA or an attorney, whatever. I will only share that I am also an LLC, taxes and S corp.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So what is your biggest struggle right now?
What's my biggest struggle right now? I would say my biggest struggle right now that I'm going through is I do have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm not saying that's the biggest struggle, but it's like I want to make sure I'm providing a great life for her, not just monetarily, but a lot of the stuff that I'm learning now, I want to pass on to her. We moved to Florida in September. So here we go. Huge tip. If you are an entrepreneur, you need to look up this type of school. It's called an Acton Academy, ACTON. It's a non-traditional, very entrepreneurial. They do like core values at the beginning of the year, like from a young age. The kids have to hold each other accountable to that. It's like almost a leadership type school and foundation and curriculum. And it's very Socratic. So the teachers are more guides and ask a lot of questions and make the kids think. So I think it's passing on a lot of what I've learned in my 20s and 30s to my daughter, who is now 5. And I want her to be a thinker, to be the one that gets this training and knowledge. So like my big struggle right now is making sure that I'm passing that on and teaching her good things. I would also highly recommend the Tuttle Twins books if you've got young kids, and the 7 Habits of Happy Kids too, by Sean Covey too. We've got a whole line of books, teach great things. So it's like my biggest struggle right now is probably just making sure I raise a competent human.
Yeah, a contributing citizen to society.
Exactly.
I'm definitely going to get that list of books from you later on.
Okay.
Acton, that's not the same one that Elon started.
No, not the same one that Elon started. I actually heard about this one from someone in a mastermind that I'm a part of, started one in Oklahoma. And that's like, got me. It's Courage to Grow is the name of the book that the founders started of Acton. And now they're in almost every single state. Like there's ones in major cities in every single state. So you can look that right up on their site.
That's cool. Yeah, because I was reading about the one that Elon started because he did not care for the traditional school system. And so, yeah, in case you guys have not noticed, giant Elon Musk, super fan. And, just a word of warning for you, right? Your 5-year-old daughter. So I got 10, 9, and coming up on 5 tomorrow.
Ooh,
right? And so having kids that learn how to think, you're going to have a lot of challenges because they question me on everything.
I see your posts and I'm like, I want what Steve is doing with his like 9 and 10-year-olds. I want Ellie, my daughter, to be asking those types of questions or like challenging me. Because I love that, because it is. It's like sometimes the best accountability is your children.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
You know that I was talking to them and I ended a question with right. And I've taught them, you don't end questions with right. I just ask a question, don't end it with a yes, no modifier. As I asked them a question and I said, right. They're like, Dad, you're not supposed to do that. I was like, man, it's like there is no reprieve.
Yep.
How do you measure success?
Ooh, I measure success. I get this a lot from Larry Yatch. It's more of a feeling. So it's more of a feeling of our accomplishment for that day. Did I do and from reading the 4 agreements too, did I do my best today? If I can, no one can touch me. No one. And I can't give 110. 110 gives you burnout. Did you give 100% of yourself that day? So that to me is true success, because if I was a good father or a good podcast guest, or if I was doing whatever, if I could bring value to the world that day and I did my best, that's how I have to measure success now, because I've fallen into that trap before of like money and fame or, like books sold or whatever. It's like, but no, true success to me now is more, did I do my best? And if I did, no one can really touch me. Even if I disappointed someone that day, I did my best. That's what real success is. And honestly, we need that on a daily basis. I'm not looking for some success off in the future. I'm looking for success today.
I love that. What is your superpower?
I would say my superpower is teamwork. working with a good team, building a team, really being able to build a good culture. There's another great book. A CEO only does three things: culture, people, numbers. I would say one of mine is finding the right people and building a great culture. So, like those superpowers of bringing that team together and making sure we're all on the same page and that we're really bonding together to help people. So, I would say that's definitely a big superpower of mine.
Phenomenal. What is the greatest lesson you've learned?
Besides profit first, of course.
Hmm.
So, the greatest lesson I've learned, this is so difficult because I keep track of all the books I read and I've learned so many different lessons, but it might be what I've learned recently from the four agreements, that I don't need to take anything personally. You know, other people have their view of the world, then they're going to always be thinking their way, and they're thinking, and every single response is from something that that they've been exposed to.
Their lens and their
Their
filter.
lens, exactly. Their lens or their filter. So don't take anything personally. Don't make any assumptions whatsoever. Ask the question. If you think you know something, ask. And don't think, know it.
Mhm.
Especially if you need that answer. And then, like I said, that last one there of always do your best. And if you do your best, no one can really touch you because you know deep down that I did my best. Then you know that you're going to be able to put your head on your pillow at night. And isn't that what we're all looking for? Like that's why now getting this message out there. I want people to say that who didn't have an education in finances or whatnot can now say there's a book out there, there's a process, a system that I don't have to live in the rat race, so I can do my best here to provide for my family or to
Yeah.
do those things. So that might be some of the best lessons I've learned, and try and constantly learn. So that's the lesson I've learned recently.
Yeah. Well, I get that. What was your favorite, best, or most interesting failure?
My favorite, best, or most interesting failure. Man, when there's so many. Just kidding. But as far as the failures in my life up to this point, probably the biggest one that's for me personally was people pleasing. I was a very much people pleaser, like at any cost to my personal health. I was a big, I used to check my email probably 100 times a day. And you know what? As you grow as a business owner, you can't be doing that. That's not our highest and best. And it's like always thinking, I need to be there, I need to respond, I need to do this, and not letting the team really be what the team is there for. So I feel like that was probably one of my earlier mistakes over the last few years and getting better at that of really letting go and letting the people that I've trusted run with those things so that way I can actually be on a podcast like this, bringing
Right.
value to a lot of people and saying, you can get out of this rat race. So it's like those failures of not letting go of those things when I should have and really not empowering those people in those seats at that time because you think if you do that, that's the faster way in order to help more people. It really is. So I would say those are some of
100%
the
is.
ones I think.
And last question is, what book have you gifted more than any other?
So I will say, because that one's hard too, because I gift a lot of books and I'm a huge reader. Obviously, profit first for real estate investing now. So I want to make sure that we're gifting that. But then also, oh man, probably The Road Less Stupid is the one that I've gifted more recently,
Hmm.
and The Ultimate Blueprint for an Insanely Successful Business, both by Keith Cunningham. Those are really good books on The Road Less Stupid is all about good questions you should ask yourself if you're going through difficult troubles in your business. Like
Yeah.
he's helping you avoid the dumb tax as a business owner. So like if you're going through hiring or teamwork or like systems or whatever, here's questions, deep questions to ask yourself of like how you can turn that around or whatnot. So that's definitely one that I've gifted a lot here recently and that we give to all the people that we're working with.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible book. And, for those of you guys that are wondering, because it's such a weird title,
Right.
there's two things about that book that I really like a lot. First, just thinking, like, if you never made financial mistake, where would you be
Right.
financially? Right? It's like, oh my goodness. So now, okay, now that he sold you on the value of thinking time, now you can start doing thinking time.
Yep.
Right. So that's the first thing. So that's why he calls it The Road Less Stupid. And the second thing is, no matter what obstacle you're facing in your business, there's a chapter.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
wherever you're struggling with your business, how do I handle this difficult employee? How do I fire somebody? How do I scale? Whatever question is, there's a chapter for it.
Yep.
And it gives you like 9 questions to ask yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that. How to apologize. Like he's got a whole apology. Like maybe I did something wrong, but we're not working here. You know, it's like, it's just great practical information and a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
in there.
So it's definitely, I don't know if it's number one yet. I got to figure that out, but it's definitely my top 3 favorite books.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time for me.
All right. So I want you to think about what you want to leave the listeners with while I make just a few quick announcements. Guys, if you got value today, please like, subscribe, share, comment. I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. David is on a mission to help people get out of this rat race we put ourselves into, right? Like we all talk about the rat race as far as the Kiyosaki perspective, but we're talking about like actually becoming wealthy from your business, running a business that doesn't rely on you. So we're both actually on big missions here. So like, subscribe, share, comment helps us reach more people. We do have our Discord channel, so check out the link in our YouTube for the Discord channel. And we do have a workshop coming up tomorrow, so it might be too late. But if you guys are interested, check it out right now, disruptors.com/workshop. What are some last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with?
So the last thought. So I'll speak to you right now. This is you and me in a room. I've already said it, but I want to hit it again. The whole point of what we talked about today is to make profit a habit. So open up that one account, call it profit, and transfer 1%. And I promise a year from now, you will have more money in that account than you've ever had in your business, in your life. You'll be able to then say, I've built this habit and this discipline because that's what we're trying to build here. That's how you get out of the rat race. That's how you do what wealthy people do. And I want to make sure that you have no excuse whatsoever now to go out there and be a profitable business and go out there and bring more value to your employees, to the community, to the world. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think this is the last piece, right? We're talking about creating millionaires. Like this is probably like that end piece, right? Like you've learned marketing and sales and business, leadership, all these key principles. But at the end of the day, if you're not keeping it, it's all a waste of time.
Exactly. If you go down, business bloodline is cash. And if you run out of cash, game over. No more 100 millionaires. No more going out there buying 100 properties or doing 10 deals a month. You need to make sure you have this piece.
Yep. How can someone get a hold of you?
SimpleCFOsolutions.com. That's really the one-stop shop. If you think you're wanting to work with us, because we do. We work with people that are doing about 5 deals a year, you know, up to people that have a $10 million business. So we're working like anywhere in between there to help people with their finances.
Yeah, so simplecfosolutions.com. And if you guys actually like this episode today, David interviews a whole bunch of people on his podcast. And if you want to learn more about my business, actually, David interviews me and we talk about my finances. So if you guys want to check that out, go check out simplecfosolutions.com. Check out that podcast. You look for our episode, or you can go buy the book, Profit First
for Real
Estate Investing.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Steve.
All right.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.